Meeting to order at 7:06. Good evening. This is a meeting of the Ferndale Public Schools Board of Education held on Monday, November 16th, 2015. The meeting is being recorded for broadcast on the district's YouTube channel, live streamed right now, and then it'll be added to our channel if you subscribe. All meetings in the Ferndale schools are held in public in compliance with the Open Meetings Act. Printed documents discussed in tonight's meeting are available to the public on the district's website, with the exception of any information protected by student or employee privacy rights. Board meeting information is posted on our website at ferndaleschools.org. If you do not have access and need information, please contact the board offices at 248-586-8652 by Thursday of the week prior to the meeting, and district staff will do their best to assist you. So let's please have a roll call.
Deacon Kraus? Here. Mueller? Here. Latash? Here. Lease May? Here. Toomey? Here. President O'Donnell?
Here. Yes, and Trustee Butters is home ill this evening, so we'll send her our good wishes for a speedy recovery. Does anyone have any changes to the agenda? Then by unanimous consent, if there are no changes, without objection, the agenda is considered approved. And we will move to item number 2, a presentation by Roosevelt Principal Diana Keefe.
Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh, the pledge. Yes, sorry. Forgot about that.
Get ready for that.
We still live in the United States.
Yes. Je suis Paris.
Right.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much.
Can I just say, it takes young people to actually say the pledge right. You do it much better than me.
You do, and you remembered. At this time, before we get into the presentation, Diana, I just wanted to take one moment of silence out of respect for the victims and families of all the terrorist attacks that have occurred throughout the world, most notably recently in Paris, Beirut, and Baghdad. So just a moment of reflection, please. Thank you.
Okay,
Now we will turn to Principal Keefe.
great. Good evening. Our theme this year across the elementaries is One Team Endless Dreams. So I brought along a few team members here tonight. They're all from Miss Smith's third grade classroom, and they'll perform for you in just a moment. I have a little bit of background. So as a district, we're working on growth mindset. So they're going to do a little activity with you that puts that in third grade terms, because all of us need to have that growth mindset. But it sounds and looks a little different for where you are in your life, certainly different for a third grader than it is, possibly for me who can, make some of those choices. So they'll do an activity with that. Also, we've been learning from John Hattie's research that components of high-quality teaching include setting personal learning targets and having reflection and having learning engagement within the classroom. So they're going to be showing you some examples of their data binders that has all of their learning goals in it, and they can talk with you about those as well. And also, another initiative which is new for us is interactive notebooks, and that's in our school improvement plan this year, and that's all about engaging the students in their learning, and they providing reflection on it and peer-to-peer information to each other, showing, teaching, learning. So they'll show you their interactive notebooks as well. So I also wanted to share with you, recently Roosevelt has just received 2 grants that are going to support our interest at our school in teaching and reaching the whole child. Both of these grants are related to physical activity and healthy living and healthy eating. So we're really excited. The kickoff assembly is tomorrow, Fuel Up to Play 60 at John F. Kennedy School, and our third grade students will be there to participate in that. So we're excited about that. And save the date, February 10th. We're doing a heart healthy night at Roosevelt, and part of the grant funding will support that, and it's going to be all about healthy living. So see you there. That's my commercial. Roosevelt also has 2 new programs in our building this year that we're excited about. We know that students are different types of learners, but even when they're younger, they're even different types of learners. So we're proud to have the lower Montessori classroom at our school this year, in Ferndale for the first time, and within a public school, which is amazing. And we're seeing some great results within our walls of that. And we also have an early autism spectrum disorder classroom for the first time in a couple years. So I'm the proud principal of Roosevelt. I love it. I'm glad to share some things with you tonight. And any questions for me, or do you just want to see those cuties? See those cuties.
Questions? Yeah, let's see
Okay,
'em.
so Miss Smith, take it away.
All right, you guys want to stand up? So the way we use this in our classroom is we're constantly looking for ways to get past the frustration, to build that tenacity, to build that perseverance. And this was a program that Dina Roshlo was able to purchase for me on a trial basis. It's called Vocabulary. There's lots of academic videos, but this happens to be a life skills video about how to deal with frustration.
We all get frustrated sometimes. Me too. But it's okay. Just remember. When I started elementary school, there were so many things that I wanted to do. I wanted to write words and tie my shoes. And draw pictures that look really cool. But I kept messing up when I colored out the lines. My teacher said it's fine, but I just started crying. After that, I got really mad. I scribbled on my drawing and tore it in half. I was frustrated. It happened a lot. It wasn't fair at all. That's what I thought. Other things too got me really frustrated. Sharing my toys was something I hated. When playtime ended, I got upset. So the drawing had me really mad. Yeah, you bet. I was mad at drawing. Mad at myself. I was mad at Molly who was drawing out help. I was frustrated with everyone and everything. I wanted to run away to kick and scream. I hid behind my chair and I wouldn't come out. When the teacher said roar, I yelled and shout. It took a little while, but I calmed down. I thought about everything that I'd gone down. I didn't want to be surrounded by frustration. Now I'm dealing with my anger and it's amazing. Janelle told her worksheet because math is hard. Jerry got frustrated sitting in the car. The line for the slide was too long for June. Jordan couldn't fix her hair the way she wanted to. Frustrating things happen every day, but we're dealing with them and we're feeling okay. When you feel like you want to scream, it might not be as bad as it seems. So now I don't let my frustration stop me from trying new things. You got me? Here's 4 things I remember. Whenever I'm frustrated, things make it better. 1, you don't have to do it right the first time. New things are usually hard, and that's fine. 2, take small steps. You're not fully grown. You can't make a Mona Lisa or dunk like LeBron. 3, be patient with yourself and others too. Like waiting in a long line at the zoo. Well, everybody has to wait their turn. Be patient and good at waiting. You heard? If you get frustrated, deal with it the right way. Take a deep breath or shake your body, okay? Tap your head or sing this song, and hopefully you'll feel better before long. Everyone gets frustrated, grown-ups too. If you get frustrated, here's what you can do. Take a deep breath and relax. Vocabulary's got your back. Yeah, now to our worksheet 'cause math is hard. Jamie got frustrated sitting in the car. The line for the slide was too long for June. Jordan couldn't fix her hair the way she wanted to. Frustrating things happen every day, but we're dealing with them and we're feeling okay. When you feel like you want to scream, it might not be as bad as it seems.
Great
So,
job.
you guys did fabulous. As you might imagine, when they're in the classroom, there's a little more dancing going on. The line about you might not dunk like LeBron, there's a little dunking going on. So they're a little nervous in front of you. But the nice thing about this is it's written in a way that kids relate to. And I hear them saying these things. I've heard my kids saying, you don't have to do it right the first time. They say that to each other because they've heard it on here. I've heard them say it might not be as hard as it seems, you know, don't give up yet. So it's a nice addition to our classroom, and this is only one of probably 30 or 40 songs on the program. So nice job, you guys. And now they want to show you their data binders and their notebooks. So if you could just pick up your stack and maybe talk to one person at the table or just let them see your stuff. Dimple, you can come over here. Tamara, come on over here. Elijah,
We don't bite much.
Dan, up here, up in the front. Madison.
Let's see.
What's your name? What's your name? Mackenzie, all right. She's what, a ninth
Yeah.
grader? She's in high school.
You like to read? What do you like to read about?
So, this
Stuff.
who's
I like
this?
to read too.
That's you.
All right. So these are your goals. These are
You
the
want to tell
things
me
that you work on to reach
what's
your
in
goals.
here?
So what are your reading?
Is purple your favorite color? What's your favorite color?
Not at all. So you like to read at school?
Your fingerprint?
Where's that showing one up there?
Nice. So you do this every morning? Wow. Oh, yeah.
Have goals?
Do you write about like what you do?
Nice job.
Nice. So what else do you have?
So what's something that you wrote about today?
Grammar. All right.
You did a great job on that.
Yeah.
You got your goals for reading?
Do you like singing these? That's a
Do
great
you like to read?
So
What's up?
do you like to read?
What's your favorite book?
What have you read this year? What's the last thing you remember reading?
What's it? Mad Kid? Bad Kid.
I love
Right.
those.
Yes.
Those are great. Wow.
Oh, look at that.
You like dragons? Oh, dragons are fun.
Well, not all day. She's reading Junie B. Jones.
Great movies.
I understand. So what's in here?
He breathes fire sometimes, don't he?
Oh, so you dated a notebook? Let's see.
This is your
Here, we
man.
can move this out of the way.
Looks like
Oh, goals. So you can read for like
it looks
a
like
chapter books.
you've done a nice job.
I have to work on that myself. Like when I almost skipped the Pledge of Allegiance tonight.
Awesome.
All right, nice. Oh, and these are things you can do. I like this. Very nice. Oh, and self-assessments. All right. Thank you very much. All right.
This way, back up, lady.
I like that.
Thank you so much.
Can you maybe see the home team?
Yeah. Well, so, parents, give a wave. Here's our appreciation.
Can we acknowledge the parents and guardians in the room?
They're out there waiting.
Waiting.
Yep. I'll say it.
Well, that was fun.
I learned in that song.
The auditors are going to present the auditing song. One of them did.
I hope you have some dance moves or good.
All right.
Noted. We are
Okay.
noted. This is what Stephen told me.
I won't be needing one.
All right. I guess we could go with that. So next up, we have the time for our student representatives. And Mr. Smith, are you here to make an introduction or just observe?
No, I'm
Crystal.
here. My student called me, so I was saying Christmas night, so that's why I'm in jeans, everyone. I'll go first.
So you're doing the presentation?
I am giving the presentation.
What?
Okay.
I'm Crystal Rivas.
Reading Crystal's report.
What was that, Eric? Took me 41 years to get here, that's right.
So and then after Mr. Smith, we'll
presenting
hear
a
from
song,
Ms. Smith.
That's
Yeah,
what I'm saying.
marching band won the state championship. Ball play, exit, the body was great.
You're all setting the bar way too high.
And I want a personalized version of the frustrating video, so that's just... Anyway, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The marching band did win its 8th state championship a weekend ago. Their score was actually the 5th highest in the state, so they did win Flight 4, they would have won Flight 3, and they would have finished 3rd in both Flight 2 and Flight 1, and for those of you unfamiliar with how the flights are, it's broken down just like athletics by school size. You can't go up or down, you are where you are. And so that's an outstanding tribute to these kids and to the whole community for supporting them. They begin, in fact, they've already started for next season already, at least the production staff, thinking about what we're going to do next year and so on and so forth. So, they'll probably bump back up to Flight 3, no guarantee, but it doesn't really matter. As we like to say in the band business, only one band can come in first place, but everyone can win. So you're always just trying to be better than you were the previous week. You know, trying to win is something that makes the journey that much more enjoyable and teaches these kids how to work with focus and work through frustrations, as we just saw. And that's just the icing on the cake. So a great season. Really proud of them. Although the first championship was always the best, I think.
Is that in 65?
That was not in 65, but it was my last year as band director. So I won 1, Elon's won 7, I get it. So. I also want to compliment the fall play. I'm sure many of you saw Exit the Body, and it was a hilarious farce, well acted, well directed, and I just want to give a special shout out to Miss Linda Murley, who was our theater director here for 29 years, and when Melissa Smith, the current director, is out on Family Medical Leave Act, tending to her husband, Miss Murley stepped in, like she never, other than complaining about how fatigued she gets, working with these kids was a delight to watch her, and I think it re-energized her. So she did a wonderful job, and the entire cast and crew was just marvelous to watch them put this thing together, and then to put it on stage. There wasn't a weak link on that stage. I was very proud of them. This Saturday is the first of our 4 SAT prep camps. As you're all aware, the state has switched from ACT to SAT, and not only is it new to Michigan, but it's new across the country. The SAT has completely been reformatted from the SAT anyone has taken it over the last number of years. So it's a little bit of a scary proposition. So to that end, we've already taken the PSAT, but this Saturday we're inviting all the sophomores and juniors, both sophomores and juniors, because they're going to be in the fish barrel next year, to take an online full-blown version of it with writing and everything. Teachers are coming in and volunteering their time to proctor this exam. And then there's 3 other dates to specifically target in where the results will show where they need prescriptions or a little bit of work on some of the strengths or some of the weaknesses from a content standpoint. And then the last Saturday, which is in March, will be just a strategy of how to take the test, how to prepare for it emotionally and physically, so on and so forth. So we're looking forward to that. It's all free of charge for the kids. Your kids are supposed to sign up online. It's been distributed through them through their Gmail account here. We're also doing a principal's newsletter, robocall on the board. I'm hiring a skywriter. We want everyone here to do this thing this Saturday. And speaking of seniors, that was the funny line I wrote for Crystal to read, which Never mind. And don't say senior citizen, you. I was waiting for that. So speaking of our seniors, we had our cap and gown presentation, which is always a delightful day because those kids finally get a taste of, oh my God, it's real. And they're excited, but they're a little terrified as well. So if you have seniors here, then you need to know that they were given all the cap and gown information as well as all the other swag that you can spend your money on, rings, senior gear, spinner tassels, all kinds of stuff like that. As well as we took our panoramic senior picture. So this Saturday, I think it's starting to sink in on the seniors that this is it. All right? And they're responding very well. I do a big thing with them about showing the senior leadership instead of senioritis. I want them to lead by example for the rest of the school year. Sometimes it falls on deaf ears, all right? We're proud of the secondary honors program between UHS and Ferndale High School. Katie Jeffries is really in charge of this, but the first thing that we're doing right now, or the next thing we're doing right now, is setting up these kids with interviews with the ILTs, instructional lead teachers, where they are going over their transcripts with their career goals. The teachers have prompts to ask them to kind of really get thinking about what's next in their life, as well as interview techniques, that sort of thing. Miss Mays is holding a STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math meeting tomorrow night in preparation of them traveling out to the East Coast. Last year they went to the West Coast and went to Stanford and UCLA and some other places. This spring they're heading to the East Coast. I think they're going to MIT, Harvard, among other places, some of the Ivy Leagues. The first meeting of the Citizens for a Fair Ferndale, well, the first small group cohorts, right? This is a thing that's spearheaded with Kat Latosh and others, where we are putting together small groups of kids and working in conjunction with some social workers from the University of Michigan, where the initial initiative is talking about race relations, social injustice, giving these kids a voice. They're doing a survey, and hopefully coming out of these things will be some actionable items that we can take here where we think these kids feel and need some things to be addressed. We're also working with Herb Ivory and Hiram Harris with the Southeast Coalition and trying not to cross purpose, but we think we're all kind of heading toward the same direction. So those are some of the initiatives that are going on right now. Let's see. Freshman McKenna Bellamy is a two-time, are the Bellamy's here? Anyway, she's a freshman, and she qualified in 2 different swimming events on the girls' swim team, and she's competing at Eastern Michigan this upcoming weekend. So way to go, McKenna. That's a great feat for a freshman to qualify for state. So if you're listening, we also had a junior cross-country young man, Will McKelgen, finished 39th in the state, and that may not, 39th is out of hundreds of kids who are out there running in cold weather. He did it, and he just missed being an all-state kid by 9 places, so the top 30, and he's a junior, so hopefully next year he'll make that cross. So congratulations to junior Will McKelgen. But all our winter sports are now underway except for boys swimming. They start next week, so it's a busy time here during the winter. Tomorrow is our first blood drive of the year, so if any of you want to give, tomorrow starting at 8 a.m. until 2 p.m. right here in the Media Center. And let's see, a couple concerts that will happen before this body reconvenes. The high school band concert is December 3rd at 7:30. And the Ferndale High School Choir and Orchestra do a Winter Voices concert on December 12th at 7 p.m. That is a Saturday night, so that will be a special event. They combine on a nice major work. It's a pretty nice evening. All right, so I think that's all I got.
All right.
That's enough. Thank you.
Mr. Smith.
It's all you.
All right. Next is from UHS, Sanasia Smith. Looks like you got your senior class shirt there.
Okay. Hi, how's everybody doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you. A little congested, but I'll get through it. Continuing on from last meeting when I was talking about clubs, I didn't get to touch on peer mediation as much as I wanted to. It's ran by Mr. Collins. He's a history teacher at the school. The peer mediation program is kind of exactly what it sounds like. It's students really not necessarily taking over, but constructing meetings with other students they have conflict with. So if I have a problem with a student, a peer mediation member will set a meeting for me and that other student to talk out our issues, so it won't, kind of flare up, make it worse, in suspension, detention, stuff like that. So it's kind of to avoid future conflict with that student. Also, NHS, National Honor Society, did a Gleaners field trip last week. NHS students, we have to have certain community service hours. One, it looks good on college applications, and two, it kind of gives you a chance to get out in the community and actually do something. So they help serve the homeless and the hungry, which was a really cool thing. Basketball season, we actually had our first day of practice today. Last week was tryouts for the girls. Today actually was tryouts for the boys, and they'll have that kind of all week, so that's pretty exciting. We have a new basketball coach. Her name's Coach Bree, so we're kind of working with her, trying to get her familiar with all the girls on the basketball team, so hopefully that goes well. First game for the girls is December the 1st. We go against Hazel Park. And the first game for the boys is December the 8th. I believe they go against Hazel Park as well, I think. Science department, which is headed by, we have a few science teachers, but Miss Maragna, who really teaches like juniors and sophomores biology, they have partnered with C2 Pipeline, which is an after-school program that really focuses on healthcare like professions, nursing and stuff like that. They do hands-on project-based learning activities in the field of science, technology, and engineering and math to engage students, so they get a feel for what they'll be doing in healthcare field. They've partnered with that through Wayne State, and what they do is they go to a lab, like an actual lab at Wayne State, and they get to use like the lab tools and all that great stuff for activities. And also the tech club that I talked about last meeting is also doing that over the course of the year. Tomorrow is anti-bullying day. The head of that would be Miss Patterson. She's the personal finance and the Spanish teacher. The message for it is stand up to bullying and don't be a bystander. So tomorrow morning is kind of going to be like an off schedule kind of. So all morning we're just going to do activities like with fellow students, talk, conversate, and all that good jazz. Mr. Smith kind of touched on it a little bit. Seniors, not a few, but more than a few seniors have already been reported to have been accepted to a couple colleges. So it's kind of like setting in, especially like for me and for a whole bunch of other seniors, getting scholarships and all that great stuff to colleges, kind of setting in, oh my God, it's last year, I'm going to college next year, so that's pretty exciting. Also, the Spanish department is not scheduling, but they're getting together a trip to Spain, so that's pretty exciting. It's kind of a bummer that it's just for the juniors, but it's okay. It is okay. That's pretty much all I have. Any questions, comments, concerns? No? All right.
Thank
I
you.
have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
The basketball game against Hazel Park, is that a home game or what?
It's at Hazel Park.
Okay.
So, all right.
All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And next on our agenda is our presentation for the Eagle of the Month, which is our new employee recognition program. So Mr. Shelton will take that.
Thank you very much. As you know, this is the second month that we've done this, and we're very excited about it. It's a chance for us on a monthly basis to recognize our outstanding employees. And this month was no exception as our committee looked through the nominations that we got from the administrators and principals across the district. It's very impressive to see the amount of talent that we have across the district in the high regard that our administrators hold our professional staff in. So very pleased to bring 3 staff members to be recognized by the board this evening. We have 1 support staff member, 1 elementary teacher, and 1 secondary teacher to recognize tonight. First candidate to recognize tonight is Jean Harrison. Jean, can you please come up here and stand next to me? Jean actually has two different supervisors because she has two jobs. She is a paraprofessional at Roosevelt Elementary, where she works with Mrs. Keefe, who's in the audience tonight. She also works a lot with our school-age child care programs under Ms. Rocheleau, and Ms. Rocheleau is actually the nominator for this award tonight. I'm going to share Ms. Rocheleau's words with everybody. Since the beginning of the school year, Jean has worked endless hours supporting our school-age child care program, both at Kennedy and Roosevelt. She has worked hand in hand with me as I continue to learn about the processes involved with the program and has never wavered in her support. Most days she is at school by 6:30 a.m. and for most of the year she has worked until 6 o'clock p.m. Between the two jobs that she's working. This is not just her full-time job, but it's also her way to make sure that kids are cared for in the best way. Thank you, Jean, for making a difference each and every day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Shake hands.
This is your reminders all day? All day.
Try not to start before 7.
All day. It was really important today because I forgot lunch for the kids, but we got it because of her. So,
Yeah.
it's wonderful.
Our second employee being recognized tonight is from the elementary level, and that is Miss Stacy Schock. Would you please come up here, Stacy? Mr. Bruner has given me a revised presentation tonight. He was nominated. Stacy was nominated by Mr. Bruner. Stacy's currently a 6th grade teacher at Coolidge, and these are Mr. Bruner's words. I'm thrilled at the opportunity to announce that our own Stacy Schock has been recognized as Ferndale Public Schools October Elementary Teacher Eagle of the Month. It's an honor to talk about the reasons why she's deserving of this award. Ms. Schock has something that great teachers possess, the ability to make every student feel good about themselves. She's an amazing teacher of literature and writing, but before this, she creates an incredible...
There you go. Password's 1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3, 4. She individualizes these experiences and makes them personal for every student. Example of this is that she personalizes greetings to each student every morning as she meets them at the door. Her morning meetings are always fun, bright, and start the class off with something that makes students inquire, leading the class into meaningful discussion. Mrs. Schock is able to work with other classes and departments through cross-collaborative teams and is the consummate team player. I've seen her students create incredible works of art and implement school-wide initiatives that are centered in best practice and are data-driven. So that's quite a resounding letter of support from Ms. Schock and the great things you're doing at Coolidge.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Congratulations. You can have your phone back there. Our last nominee this evening is not with us, I don't believe, but I would like to recognize her nonetheless, and that is Mary Farini, 7th grade ELA teacher. She was nominated by Jason Gillespie, and I'll read to you what Jason had to say about Ms. Farini. Mary is an amazing teacher. Her teaching techniques in the classroom are engaging and differentiated. She runs our ZAP room after school. ZAP stands for Zeros Aren't Permitted. This room is where students are assigned to complete assignments. She also volunteers her time to serve on our 6th grade teacher transition committee, where she provides insights into instructional models for moving the 6th graders to the middle school next year. Mary is also a member of our school leadership team, has helped plan our Behavior Rewards Day, and is a valuable member of our school community. So I will be sure to present this certificate with your regards to Ms. Farini, and if you see her, please tell her congratulations. And that's what we have tonight.
All right, thank you, Mr. Shelton. We'll move to public comment, and as I think everyone here is familiar, this is the time we have in the meeting for public participation. We want to provide many opportunities for people to be able to address the board and administration of their school district. whether it's by email, phone, face-to-face, or in our meetings. Thank you all. So we do have a few guidelines to provide fair and impartial access to our meetings and for participation in them, and to ensure equal treatment for everyone. We just want each person to identify yourself and list any contact information on a comment sheet to help administrators follow up. If you don't wish to do the comment sheet in writing, then just please identify yourself at the podium, and if you need a response, talk to one of our administrators here, and get your contact information to them, and they will help get you a response afterwards. And I'll call on people who've completed the comment sheets first, and we do have one here. Everyone has 3 minutes to address the board. When your 3 minutes are up, we will raise our hands so you know that your time is within a few seconds of expiring. You can address the board both on agenda items or non-agenda items at this time. And once everyone has a chance to speak, we will close public comments. And if there are more people than can fit into 30 minutes, then we will add time at the end of the meeting so that everyone who wants a chance to speak has that time. And finally, complaints about staff should be made outside of board meetings and follow the applicable board policy, and this is to promote fairness to the staff person and to the complainant. So first I'd like to welcome Helen Lambrix and Mandy Renke to the podium to give a PTA progress report. And since they're presenting for 2 PTAs and they're 2 people, they get more than 3 minutes.
I specifically asked for that.
Right.
Hey everybody, my
Sounds
name
great.
is Helen Lambrix. I'm the president for the Ferndale Elementary PTA representing Roosevelt and Coolidge.
I'm Mandy Renke. I'm the president for Kennedy PTA representing JFK Elementary School.
And we wanted to come here today together. It was brought to my attention several weeks ago that maybe there was some concern in the community that we didn't have our ducks in a row, or we weren't working towards a solution for next year. So we just wanted to come and assure everyone that we are in fact working very well together. Mandy and I have actually been working together over the last 1.5 years, but specifically over the last 6 months since the transition ideology has been framed for us, to figure out what we're going to do with our parent groups for next year. So that's all going really well. It's been very positive.
Yeah. We've been to each other's meetings. We've invited our members to let us know how they feel about, nothing's been set in stone yet, and there are procedures that we have to do with the Michigan PTA, but it's pretty much come down to we only need 1 PTA for the 2 buildings. It's silly to have 2 different ones, and they're already called Ferndale Elementary PTA. So we'll probably dissolve the unit at Kennedy. Any monies left over, anything like that, will be transferred to the other, to Ferndale Elementary PTA. We've expressed that to our members. I know you've expressed it to your members, and nobody has come up and said we think this is a bad idea. So with the holidays coming, we're not going to dive into it right now. We had events at the beginning of the school year that we needed to take care of that we were busy with, but starting after the holidays and the holiday break, we'll at least I will start working with the Michigan PTA and our field representative. And like I said, there's certain procedures in our bylaws that we have to follow when we dissolve a unit. And as Helen had told me tonight, they're going to have to change their bylaws a little bit, just some wording, housekeeping stuff. But I'm going to let her take care of that, because I don't need to do that.
But
I don't envy her that one.
We did just want to come and assure everyone that we are working together. It's been a very positive experience. Our families in all the elementary schools are really looking towards the future and planning for the future. We're actually already talking about combining some of our grade level camps this year so that all of the kids are together from all schools. It's not possible this year logistically to do that for all grades, but we are working towards that. And I know that for camp next year, they're already making reservations, planning for the numbers. And so we just wanted to assure you guys that we're on top of it.
Yeah.
and everybody's happy. So,
All right.
And if you have any thoughts, come to see us. Anybody in the community or any of our members, any of the school board.
yeah,
Yeah,
we're working.
we're open for that.
We've been working really hard to mitigate any sort of concerns that our families may have, and figuring out solutions for anything. But really, we haven't really run into anything at all.
No.
So.
All right.
I think
Well,
some of them are probably happy we're taking care of it.
if I know it's on the district calendar, but just remind us when when the next meetings are.
For Kennedy Elementary, it's the first first Tuesday in December, which I think is the first of
Okay.
December at 6:30.
And ours is the 8th
Okay.
at 6 o'clock, and it's at Coolidge.
All right.
Okay, so the JFK one is December 1st, 6th,
6:30, yeah.
and then December 8th at
Coolidge.
at
At 6.
At 6.
All right.
So I just wanted to thank Helen and Mandy. They've done a phenomenal job at starting the year, getting Halloween, getting the fall festival, and all that, and then all this work on top of it. It's great to have you as leaders right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. All right, so anyone else just please approach the podium, and you line up behind Mr. Telesford. I'll know who's next.
Good evening. My name is Maurice Telesford. I'm the president of the Ferndale Education Association. First, I want to thank the board and administration for the wonderful dinner we had last week at the Emory. It was just an informal chance for our leadership team to get to know the board members a little bit more, and I think everyone benefited from hearing different stories, why we're here, what our interests are, what our hobbies are, et cetera. So I'm hoping that can be a launching point for awesome relationships in the future. And I think we've had good relationships so far, so continuing that and improving it. The other reason why I'm here, unfortunately, our friends in Lansing seem to be at it again. The Senate Bill 279 and 280 have recently passed. If you aren't familiar with those, they seem to be another attack on unions, or at least they seem to want to get rid of the time that presidents have outside of the classroom to work with administration. I know in our district, I have 40% off from the classroom to work with the administration to resolve issues. And I think Tom and I use that time really well to put out fires before they become fires even, and to sort of think and problem solve and collaborate to make sure we make decisions that are the best for our employees as well as the district. So I think the time is valuable for the union, but I also think that Lansing should not dictate what we think is best for our district. So if the board and the teachers union thinks that having some release time for their president is beneficial for the district, we should be able to negotiate that and put that into our contract, which is what we currently have. So our union is organizing. Wednesday we'll be meeting to decide how we want to try to work with the other leadership groups. And you may get a communication from me towards the end of the week asking for your support and communicating to Lansing that we'd like to keep local control of how we operate as a district. So expect to hear something from me towards the end of the week.
Okay.
Thank
And,
you.
just so you know, the Oakland County superintendents are in complete agreement with that. We don't believe it's a Lansing choice. It's a local choice.
Okay.
So I know from the superintendent stance, we stand with you.
Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Marie Gearing, and I am the secretary at Roosevelt, as well as I was just newly elected as the president of the Secretarial Union. So I wanted to thank Tom Shelton for putting some training in place for us. We're working on the second Monday's early release, trying to get secretaries to go for like a 45 to an hour training sessions. Last week we did telephone training, and that was helpful for certain obstacles people have not learned yet. And next month we're going to go for Google Docs, so that also is something many members are looking forward to. So thank you.
All right, welcome and congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And is there anyone else who wishes to address the board this evening?
Patty Collins,
Hello.
former president of the secretaries. I just wanted to thank everyone. I retired in June and was able to come back and work in the finance department. So I really appreciate being able to do that part-time, like 20 hours a week. And just wanted to say that Nancy is great to work with.
All right. No.
We see it in your budget.
Yeah.
Right.
That's on page 5 of the audit.
Thank you. All right, so seeing no one else at the podium, we will close public comment and move to our consent agenda. There are 5 items on our consent agenda. 6.1 is a request to approve minutes of the special meeting of October 19th, 2015. 6.2, request to approve minutes of the regular meeting of October 19th, 2015. 6.3 is a request to approve bills and accounts. Item 6.4 is a request to approve resignations and new hires. Item 6.5 is a request to approve the Head Start policy and plan policy that I have here. So all of these items are in the packet, and does anyone wish to remove any of the items from the consent agenda and discuss them later in the meeting? For any questions or discussion? All right, seeing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Moved by Ms. Kermuller and seconded by Ms. Toomey. Is there, well, there's no discussion because it's the consent agenda, so we will go to a roll call.
Yes.
Yes. That's 6 yes, the motion passes and the consent agenda is approved. So we'll move to the action item. Item 7.1 is a request to approve the first read of bylaw 0142.5, which is our process for filling a board vacancy, which we are very likely to have on January 1st. But nothing official yet. So, did you want to present this?
Yes, I'm just pulling it up here.
All right.
We had a meeting of the governance committee, which is Jim O'Donnell, Jen Latach, and Amy Butters, to go through our bylaws as it pertains to vacancy in the process to vote and appoint a new board member. So I'm just going to go through step by step very quickly. I'm going to rely on Mr. Deegan or Dr. Deegan Krause regarding any preferential voting, where that's an area that is his expertise and not mine. We'd first announce the poster vacancy via media, district website, letters, etc., asking any interested persons to notify the board president. All candidate interviews should be open to the public and follow the requirements of the Open Meetings Act. The final vote of the appointment also takes place in a public meeting. We are all set from the communications department to already start posting, when that event happens, and to be able to get out that information far and wide. The total board interviews each candidate. Interviews are designed to determine how well the candidate fulfills the board's responsibilities. Following the interviews, the board will deliberate on the merits of the candidates. There will be a round of voting to determine the board's first preference. If there is no majority, there will be a second round of deliberations and a second vote. After the second vote, there is still no majority, all candidates that did not receive a vote in the second round will be eliminated. The candidate with the lowest amount of votes in the second round will also be eliminated. A third round of deliberation and voting will commence. If more than 2 candidates remained after the third round, then preferential voting will commence as described below. I don't know if President O'Donnell or Mr. Deegan Krause, if you want to describe the preferential voting.
Yeah, rather than reading through this, which comes from Roberts, just if you just describe a little bit of what the idea behind preferential voting and why it's.
I mean, the nice thing about this is that we don't resort to this method until the 4th round of voting, and this is simply a way of breaking ties. Preferential voting is actually something that's used in a variety of countries around the world. So it's used in Ireland, it's used in Australia, Malta, a bunch of other places. And the basic idea is that people have, when they're voting on something, they have more than one piece of information. Normally when we ask people to vote, we ask them to say yes or no, or to pick one thing. Well, in fact, we go to a restaurant, we go anywhere, we know we'd prefer one thing to another, to another, to another. And this is simply a actually rather elegant mathematical way of solving the problem by finding those with the fewest first preferences and redistributing their vote upward to what's second on the ballot, third on their ballot, and fourth on their ballot, and so on. So it's a really easy way of sort of determining if you don't get your first choice, can you get your second choice? If you don't get your second choice, can you get your third choice? And we followed Robert's rules, so even though Roberts isn't particularly fond of it, they're willing to lay it out in great detail, so we are able to keep with our other board bylaws that we follow Robert's rules, while at the same time using what is actually a very nice electoral system, one that I think actually we should probably do for almost everything. But in this case, we're going to hold it as the last resort, but it's there for what we can do. Just as an aside, I run a class roughly every year on democratic theory and election systems, and when my students at the end take their exam, the exam is to pick their favorite electoral system. This is always the one that they pick, and then they give good explanations why. So there's good reason for using it, but in deference to standard procedure, we don't actually use it unless we absolutely have to.
There's actually a little chatter about moving to instant runoff voting here in
Ferndale
Michigan.
has it. Ferndale has it on the books, and as soon as the voting machines are in order, Ferndale will move to that for electing its city council. So it's a good and elegant system, and it prevents spoilers. It prevents a lot of other ways of gaming the system. It's quite nice.
All right. So if anyone wants to read more about the specifics, which will be done by paper rather than the instant runoff version of things, slightly slower than instant, but still pretty efficient, go to the board packet or to your favorite copy of Robert's Rules of Order. So this is a first reading. Does anyone have any questions or comments on this first reading? And
I'm just a dork. I was so excited to see it. It's also my favorite system.
if you think of anything,
As a government teacher.
yeah, it is quite nice. So if you think of anything over the next few weeks, the governance committee will discuss it again, and then it will be brought back for second reading and consideration for approval at the December meeting, and then it will be part of the permanent bylaws. So that's that on that. Unless you have anything else on
Nope.
that one. The rest of this basically comes from our committee's review of some documents, of the existing bylaw plus documents from the Michigan Association of School Boards. And in practical terms, I just did want to say one thing about the first point about notifying the board president. In practical terms, what that would probably look like is similar to our committee applications. There'll be a Google form that people fill out, and the administration
We'll have it
will
available
collect it.
online, also in paper form within offices, so that for people that don't have online access, they can also have paper copies if need be. So there's many different ways that we can get word out there to people, and they can apply.
If an event were to occur.
If an event were to occur.
Right. All right, so with that behind us, we'll move on to action item 7.2, which is a request to approve the audit, and we have a presentation on that. So I'll invite our friends from Plant Marana.
Which one? It was the one that did Ferndale Board of Education. Okay. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Eric Formberg. I'm an audit partner at Plant Moran. I've been auditing school districts my entire career, which now spans over 33 years. I know I felt more like I was one of the third graders in there than someone who's been around for 33 years. But I want to give you a sense of not only what the audit is, but a little bit of on what the results of the audit were. But before I do that, I'm actually privileged to be able to go to a lot of districts and participate in a lot of board meetings. And I like to really take note of some of the things that happen. And this isn't on the script or anything, but some of the beauty of what occurred tonight, I just really have to reflect on. You know, you started out talking about students, and you captured the realities of what's going on in their life. By the way, that video, I said to Stephen, I think we could use that in our Audit 101 training. I think that it kind of looks like some of the auditor faces on occasion. But thank you so much. But seeing some of the impact of that. And then we talked about the events. Now, I happen to be a band dad. My kids are now in college, but I spent 6 years heavily participated in high school band programs. Nancy and I actually talk a fair amount about band experiences, as she has one in high school band currently as well. And first of all, your performance there on the competitive side was just truly outstanding, actually. But then you talked about staff, and I thought that was really significant because here we're talking about students, we're talking about events, but it's the staff that make it work. And to truly recognize the impact that they have and to see the expressions on the faces of the individuals when you gave them the word, amazing, absolutely amazing, because they're directly having an impact on kids. And then the last thing you talked about was having an impact as a board member, because now you maybe have to go through a process of selecting another board member. This job that you have taken, in my opinion, is one of the toughest elected jobs there is, because of what you have in your hands. You know, you impact the lives of thousands of students, and the decisions that you make have that impact. That's got nothing to do with the audit, but it has everything to do with what at least is my passion for the kinds of things that truly go on here, and I truly love working with public education. The financial information, which is what we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about, really is critical to you as board members because you have very difficult choices that you have to make. Every one of those things that you've talked about require an investment. And as board members, one of the biggest difficulties that you have is having all these needs and desires over here, and you have these limited resources over here. And so you have to take these limited resources and then figure out how to most effectively parse those out to cover all those objectives. And it's a very difficult job. And if you don't have good financial information to work from, especially as we look into the details, you're kind of walking the thin line here currently. If you don't have good financial information, then you don't have the right tools to make those decisions so that you know. So that's kind of how it all kind of winds back down together. It isn't all about the finances, but the finances really become a critical element so that you can effectively educate students. So now we're to the audit. The state of Michigan requires that you get a financial statement audit on an annual basis. You're required to have a June 30 year end, and every school in the state has that same year end. And it's pretty much uniform actually across the country. So there's that audit. But actually you get a total of 6 audits because you also have to have an audit of your federal programs. And this year we had to audit 4 distinct federal programs. So we had to go in and look to see how you were managing, how effectively, from a financial accountability perspective, handling those 4 programs. So we had to develop an opinion on each one of those. And then the last one was related to your bond. Because you have bond expenditures, the state law requires that those bond expenditures also be audited. So when you add it all up, this little audit that we talk about actually has 6 very significant components to it. Our conclusion, the audit opinion, we have to draw one on 5 of the 6. The last one we don't actually draw an opinion on per se, but we have to report if there's any significant problems. And I'm glad to say in all of those, it was clean. You didn't have any issues, you didn't have any problems, we didn't come in and say, oh my goodness, this wasn't done right or that wasn't done right. And when we wind that back to what you're trying to do as board members in terms of using your financial information is the data that I'm looking at reliable? And the conclusion from the audit is, yes, it is. So not only is Nancy a nice person apparently to work with, but the information that is coming out of the office is also reliable, and that's key. So from that standpoint, the term that's used in the audit profession is an unmodified opinion. Years ago, those of you who've been around a little longer, it would have been an unqualified opinion. Now it means the same thing. It means that there isn't any variation to what we would say when we go back and we look to see, did you get everything right? We didn't have to vary that conclusion. You got everything right. So, and you receive that in all the federal program testing, and you receive that in the financial statement audit, and in the bond testing, we didn't run into any issues or concerns. So, with that kind of summarizes what the audit part is. But what we'd like to do is to spend a little bit of time and go back and look at the financial information. Now, auditors are historians. We come in, I had a client many years ago when I first started with the firm, and she had a cartoon that she put at the top of her desk that said, auditors come in after the battle's been fought and bayonet the wounded. That's when you know you're truly loved, okay? So we're historians. We come in after it's over. So I realize a lot of the information that we're talking about is as of June 30. You're well into your next year. So, and at the end, we'll maybe a few comments moving forward. But for now, what we'd like to do is to spend a little bit of time to look at the financial information, and Stephen's going to come up, who was the in charge on the engagement, to talk through these.
There's a question.
One question.
Oh, yes.
I just wanted to make a quick comment, because as I read through it, I was also reminded about how it's not just an audit of our numbers, but it's an audit of our policies, and I think that given some of our history, that's a benefit too, and so just wanted to point that out, that we are being reflective and constantly trying to look at ways to improve our internal controls and policies and things like that. So I just wanted to emphasize that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Anything that you want to point out in that direction?
All right. Well, as Eric said, my name is Stephen, and it's great to be here this evening. What I'm going to do to start off is just go through a few. The first slide is a balance sheet. The second slide is your statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance, which is a fancy name for an income statement. Just give a brief summary of your financial data. So this first slide, being a summary balance sheet, shows your total assets, total liabilities, and your fund balance by fund. So the first fund you see is the general fund, which is the primary fund. That's where the primary functions of the district run, and the remainder of your funds serve particular purposes. So your debt service fund is where the payments on your debt are made. The capital projects fund, that is going to house the activity relating to the construction from your bond. And the cafeteria fund is what it sounds like. That is the fund where your cafeteria services are held. So the balance sheet, this is a snapshot document. So this is where you were as of June 30th, 2015. So you had $6.8 million in general fund assets, $5.4 million in general fund liabilities, and then you also had a fund balance of $1.4 million. And one key takeaway from the fund balance general fund number, if you look at the assigned portion of that amount, we have $374,000 assigned, and that relates to your next year's fund balance. So, moving on to your statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. Again, we have the same four funds, and a couple key numbers to look at here. From a revenue perspective, you're going to see the vast majority of your revenue is state source revenue, which that's primarily made up of your state aid funding. That is where the majority of your revenue comes from. You also have revenue from a variety of other sources, including the state, the federal government, and intergovernmental revenue. The intergovernmental revenue is primarily dealings with other districts, mostly coming from the ISD. And then the two main chunks of your expenditures are broken into buckets called instruction and support services. We'll go more into detail on those buckets in a little bit at a later slide. And then the one final number on this page I wanted to point out was the capital projects fund expenditures, $4.23 million. This is money that is from your bond that was spent on capital projects during the year, so a significant number. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to interject, but I'm going to move on to the next slide. So this slide is going to show you your general. So from this point on of our presentation, we're going to be focusing on the general fund. That's where the primary activity of the school is housed, and that is where the most of our focus goes. So your general fund revenue, as you can see, you have you had $32.7 million in revenue during the year. The largest piece of that, as I had mentioned on a previous slide, is the state aid portion, which is $17.7 million. This amount is based on your per pupil count, and also your 147C payment is in this state aid membership chunk. So that's over half of the revenue you received during the year. You also received a significant amount of federal revenue, especially for a district of your size. That is the $3.4 million slice. As Eric mentioned earlier, we audited four of your federal grants, and specifically the Career Center grants are a large portion of the grant income you receive. That not all districts obtain that money. Additionally, there's two other chunks of revenue that we've broken this pie into. The $3.79 million number, that is your non-homestead property taxes, and the remainder, your other state, your local, inter-district sources, that's primarily categorical revenue received from the state, so different than the state aid membership, but still coming from the state, as well as money from the ISD and other districts. Moving from revenue into expenditures. So what we have here is your general fund expenditures by function code, and this is a year-over-year comparison from 2014 on the left to 2015 on the right. So the first thing that stands out to me is you had significantly less expenditures during the year. So we went from $35.5 million in expenditures during 14 to 33.6 in 15. So a decrease in expenditures total by almost $2 million. But, and visually I think this is a great slide because it shows that although you had significantly less expenditures, your pies look almost identical. Very slight differences in the different function groups. But the instruction bucket, which is the largest bucket, went up just a slight amount by about 0.4%. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take this same slide, or the same picture here on the right, so the 2015 expenditures by function code, and we're going to compare that to the Group I Michigan districts year ended 2014. So this is publicly available data that we were able to compile. Group I is the group that your district falls into. These are similarly sized districts. And again, just initial takeaway, your pie looks very, very similar to the Group I districts. So the similar sized districts to you have similar breakouts in how their money is spent. It looks like Ferndale spends a little bit more on their instruction in a percentage basis, and they spend a little bit more on their operations, maintenance, central, and transportation, which is the green bucket. One difference you will note is there were no capital outlay expenditures from your general fund during the year ended 2015. That was made possible because you have a significant amount of capital outlay expenditures through your bond, through your capital projects fund. So your bond definitely was able to, I guess, relieve a little bit of pressure from the general fund, and that there was no need for capital outlay expenditures in the general fund during the year we audited. And that is all I have. So does anyone have any questions at this point, or should I, if not, I'll turn it over to Eric.
Not yet. All right.
Not yet. That's good. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to just take a little bit of a deeper dive into the support services category. As Stephen had referenced, your major expense categories are instruction and support services. And we spent in the earlier slides talking about significant amount about the dollars related that were devoted towards instruction. support service has a lot of pieces associated with it. So what we wanted to do is to see if we could gain a little bit of knowledge by comparing the support service allocation for Ferndale to those Group I districts. And the Group I is on the right from 2014 because the 2015 data is not available yet. And then the Ferndale numbers for 2015 are on the left. Again, just kind of stepping back and looking at it, overall, just comparing the pie, again, markedly similar, just a couple of things that jump out. Ferndale, the two pieces of pie on the upper right-hand side, the blue and kind of the reddish color, are pupil and instructional staff support. And if you compare those numbers to the Group I pie, you're spending a greater percentage of your support services dollars focused in those areas, as opposed to your counterparts statewide. When you go through the rest of the pie, it's pretty much comparable, except for in the operations and maintenance bucket, you spend a little bit more than, just not a lot, but just a little bit more, and then you spend a little bit less on the transportation services. One of the reasons for that probably is that Ferndale's boundaries are pretty well defined, and while you have to, it's all city, it's pretty easy access. There's a lot of districts in your group that would have very large geographic boundaries, and so they would have to spend more time going to move students from one place to another. The other way that we look at expenditures is not by the type of service you perform, but the type of cost that it is. Schools are a service business. And if you look at this pie, the slice, the blue slice on the right-hand side, is salaries and benefits. And then the next biggest piece, the orangish colored piece, is benefits. So when you take the benefits and you take the salaries and the wages together, you get about 83%. Said a little differently, for every dollar that you spend, 83 cents is devoted to salaries and benefits. And that is what you would expect in a service business. If one of the questions is how comparable is that to other schools around the state, it is in the comparable range. I would say this year, the districts that I've looked at, the number's been between, say, 83 and 87%. What it also means is that in terms of your budget management, there's only 17% of the budget that's not salaries and benefits. And that's the other part of the challenge when you're doing that resource balance issue in terms of wherever you're trying to gain dollars, managing those two pieces clearly has the biggest impact on the overall result. The next slide looks at your fund balance history. What this graphs over time, going back to 2006, is it says where was fund balance back in 2006? If you can see, Ferndale had a significant growth in fund equity. It essentially doubled by 2012, and in the last 3 years, excuse me, we've seen a significant decrease. So your fund balance percentage, a lot of times it's referenced in terms of fund balance as it relates to the operating costs that you have, your expenditures. It's about 4.1%. The early warning legislation that everyone has been talking about, one of the triggers that they use for monitoring is having a fund equity less than 5% of total revenues. When you compare it to total revenues, it's about 4.2%. So, and I know the district has had, conversations about how to manage this, clearly, but you're really at a point where continued focus on that line will become very important. The line in the last 3 years really lines up well with the next graph. Student count. As we talked about in terms of state aid, when you get state aid, it's defined or driven based on the number of students that are in the district. So as the student count has dropped, so has your ability to generate resources. And with a decline in the ability to generate resources, it becomes necessary then to realign the cost of operation at the same time, which I know the school district has been actively involved in trying to do. But those two pieces really kind of drive the resource part of the conversation. There's two other items of cost which generate a lot of conversation, and these next two slides look at them. The first one is healthcare costs. In looking at this comparison, 2005 on the left, 2004 on the right, you see that your healthcare cost number actually went down, which is very significant. Okay. However, because your student count went down, the dollars per pupil that are devoted in order to pay the bill actually went up a little bit. So as you go to kind of manage your overall staffing costs, that's one of the items that will have an impact as student enrollment adjusts. The same conversation applies to retirement. In 2015, your gross retirement rate contribution was roughly 35%. So every dollar of compensation, an additional 35 cents goes to the retirement system. From that 35 cents, there's about 9 cents that comes in that 147C payment that Stephen referenced earlier. So the state gives you this cash over here, and then you put it in your left pocket, and then you reach into your right pocket, and then you send it to the Office of Retirement Services. So of the total cost of the 34%, it's actually costing you about 25 cents out of pocket. Okay? But you're still responsible for the total. So if that revenue got cut from the state, you'd still be responsible for sending in the check. So when you look at the overall cost, again, you've seen your cost per student that's devoted just to that one item is roughly $2,000 a student. And of course, you know, we always end on a real positive note. That really wasn't it. But this is, really. We really appreciate not only working with Ferndale, but the opportunity to work with Nancy and her staff. Whenever you change auditor, there's always a challenge, because we always get into there's new things and there's new issues. And usually there's things that bubble up that create problems. And we were able to get through everything and not have any of those significant issues. So we really appreciate the time and effort that Nancy and Scott and the rest of the team put getting us in and out. And helping us audit all 4 of those federal programs, because that certainly is a challenge, believe me. Any questions that you have that we could answer for you?
Well, just first a comment. I thought that the reports and the information that we received this year were more comprehensive and informative than they have been as long as I've been reading our school district's audit report. So I appreciate the thoroughness of the job that you and your team did.
Thank
you. I appreciate that. And then the second thing, just you know, reflecting on the graphs, especially the fund balance and the student count. I'm sure that our administrators gave you a little bit of the history here, but we have they have done, especially in the year that you audited, just a tremendous and really heroic job in trying to reduce costs where we were highly leveraged and dependent on, incredibly dependent on alternative education students in order to fund basically every other extracurricular and programming activity of the district. And that's the biggest drop on that student count. And they have taken us out of, or greatly reduced the amount of leverage that we have. And so, to come through the audit with as clean as we did with all of the changes that they had to manage in the last year is really quite remarkable, and especially with the thoroughness that you all did your audit. So I want to publicly thank them and express our appreciation for that, and for your work also.
Thank you.
So questions for the auditors? I have a few questions for administration too, just in relation to the audit. So there were a few minor things that were in the audit, not relating to the fairness of the presentation or the unmodified opinion, but I just wanted to follow up on a couple of the recommendations and findings. And one was on bank reconciliations. So there was a finding that on one specific investment account, there were some untimely reconciliations with that account. So I was wondering if we could just get more information about what account that was and some of the background.
We have sweep accounts that we use for our medical reimbursements. In the changing of personnel, it's an account that we go online to get the accountant. In changing of personnel, we could not get access to the accountant, to the information. And then the company, or the bank, also had a change in personnel, which we couldn't get someone to call a check. So that was part of our issue, that we were having trouble just getting access. It is a sweep account though, and part of it gets swept from our accounts payable account. So it wasn't, we weren't concerned necessarily that there was an issue going on, but it is something that we need to do more timely and make sure that we do.
Okay. Well, with those circumstances, and I noted that that management's response said that, you know, we're changing our processes, but what, in that particular set of circumstances, what can management do? What can the administration do?
Well, we can, whether we make sure that people have access to that. We do have a new person who we're going to train to start doing our reconciliation team. She's supposed to be speaking. So we have a new person in that position, and then we'll make sure that we always have backup, that someone has that information and can get in to get that. Right?
In many of the state systems, other systems, we didn't necessarily have redundancy. So in switching names and accounts, and even as late as last week, we got an update from the state that was sent to someone that no longer works here. So at least from the state side, they're not always really responsive, no matter how many emails, how many phone calls you do.
Right. Right. Yeah, and these are relative, you know, these are fairly small things, and, you know, all my questions are in the context of all of the major things we were right on, so. I have a couple more, but I wanted to see if anybody else had questions. Yeah.
I do know that there was also a recommendation about revising the policy for capitalization, and so I was wondering if that was something that governance was going to be looking at?
That, I think, is an internal policy that our accounting policy says that management sets the capitalization policy, so it's more like a department policy and procedure.
And it
Right.
is true, it is old, and we need to overlook that and update that.
But what we were following was, what we're actually doing, rather, is the correct way of accounting for capitalization and fixed assets. Even though if it was out of
The
sync.
practice is updated, but
Yes.
the language is not.
The language is not updated and hasn't been updated for a number of years.
So when that is updated, I think that was my question, will that just be noted to the governance when that's, or that's not necessary?
Probably to finance as a follow-up to the audit, yeah, or sustainability, rather.
So we can update sustainability at the next meeting.
Good. And then there was, I don't know if this is the same account, but the medical withholding account that was noted on there, that basically evens out on the balance sheet, but it was about $19,000 that the auditors noted. Yeah, is that going to be recorded on, so we'll see it on the balance sheet on next year's audit?
Yes, we can go ahead and make that adjustment as part of our year-end process.
Okay. All right. Those were really my main questions.
So then, the sustainability committee will follow up on this other recommendations page, is what you're saying?
Yeah, I think, you know, with respect to budgeting process, that they've got a good handle on that. And the property tax collection, I know Royal Oak Township collects their taxes in the winter, our taxes, rather, on the property in Royal Oak Township, but is that, the rest of our taxes, I thought, were collected in the summer, on the summer tax bill?
They were 100% in the summer, except when we have a special agreement with Royal Township that we allow them to.
Okay, and that's a pretty small proportion of our total.
It is not a significant part of our collection, so we still have enough to help us with cash flow.
Okay. Yeah, and then definitely we'll follow up on these, and I know the Sustainability Committee is doing regular financial statement reviews as part of our meetings. So we need a motion to approve the audit, I believe. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the fiscal year 2015, or year ending June 30th, 2015 audit as presented by Plant Moran. Moved by Mr. Deegan Kraus, seconded by Ms. Leaks May. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Miller? Yes. Ritosh? Yes. Leaks May? Yes. Toomey?
Yes.
Deacon Kraus?
Yes.
President O'Donnell?
Yes. So with 6 yes and 0 no, that motion passes and the audit is approved. And thank you again to Nancy and our team from Plant Moran. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Item 7.3 is a request to approve the first read of our fall packet from Neola. So Mr. Shelton will, I had challenged him to read one paragraph as Neola wrote it, but given the time,
Yeah,
we'll pass on that.
I will, absolutely. So I prepared kind of a brief summary of the Neola policies that I know were in your packets. You probably did notice that there was a lot of duplication in there because they apply to multiple different areas, to students, to staff, and that's just how they roll. Neola, as you know, is the comfort, especially for people in the audience, Neola is the contractor that we work with that helps us monitor and keep our board policies up to date. So Neola periodically sends us updates that keep us in compliance with federal and state laws. There's a broad sweeping set of changes coming to board policies from what's called EDGAR. That's the Education Department General Administrative Regulations. And essentially it is some changes in regulations that are compliance measures for federally funded programs. So a lot of the items that are in this Neola packet are changes that we have to make to be compliant with, for example, our career center or our anything that has to do with procurement, anything that has to do with federally funded programs is regulated by this, and so there are some changes to that. You would notice that there's the policy on conflict of interest had some minor changes, grant funds. There's a new policy in there, 6111, that deals with internal controls. Item 6320 is purchasing, and then there were two policies, 6550 and 8500, that speak to travel payment, reimbursement, and food services. So most of those changes within those federal, within those EDGAR changes are relatively minor changes. They have to do with wording or additions of some minor policies to keep us in compliance. There was a series of policy changes in there that have to do with weapons and our internal policies around weapons, specifically addressing possession of weapons by staff and students, which we already had and had well in place. The change that happened to these weapons policies are clarifying when those weapons rules apply, and clarifying that those weapons rules, forbidding weapons possession by students or staff also applies to athletic events and to other school-sponsored activities, not just to the school day. So that's clarified in this new policy, as well as defining weapons more clearly, what constitutes a weapon. So there are 4 policies that address that: 1217, 3217, 4217, 5772. Some minor changes to FMLA. There were 3 of them, 1630.01, 3430.01, 4430.01. Biggest changes to the FMLA policy is a change in pregnancy regulations that generally under FMLA there's a doctor's note that's required for pregnancy. If an absence is less than 3 days, a doctor's note is not required for that now under FMLA change in law. The other big change in the FMLA part is it broadened the definition of spouse to accommodate the recent changes in the law.
Good.
So, the sexual violence policy, that is, if you're following along, 5517.02. This is not a policy that's required, but it is recommended by Neola. And essentially what this policy does is it gives us procedures to follow to protect the district from a Office of Civil Rights complaint if we did not investigate a complaint properly. So that is a recommended policy, and our practices are largely, if not completely, in agreement with that policy already. A few other minor things. The student fundraising policy, 5830. There's a disparity between the new USDA regulations that regulate the food that we serve students and what we can and can't provide to students throughout the school day, and what the Michigan Department of Education has said. USDA, as you know, has a very strict set of regulations about bread, for example, can only be whole wheat, and if I made up any more, it would probably not be accurate, so I'll stop there. But it's a very very strict set of regulations that the USDA sets for us. One of those is what can and can't be sold to students during the school day. For example, when I was a high school principal, almost every afternoon after school there would be a group that was selling pizza in the front of the school, where kids who were going to athletic practice could grab something real quick on their way to practice. Under the new USDA regulations, that would not be allowed. The Michigan Department of Education has allowed us, through their regulations, to allow 2 of those fundraising activities a week. So the change in policy that's recommended in front of you, 5830, gets us in compliance with the MDE regulations of 2 fundraisers per week. It'll be allowed by building. The principals have to monitor those.
And the governance committee is recommending that, although we could choose to have no fundraisers during the week, we're exercising the maximum amount of exceptions that we can.
And I know I spoke with Mr. Adams, and he was very happy that his bagel sales could get back on track.
Back to bagels.
It's all about the bagels.
People even breathe about changes in USDA. It's all about the bagels.
Absolutely.
Don't ask, don't tell.
The last policy that I just wanted to highlight is the weapons and school safety policies, 7217 and 8400. 7217 reestablishes the idea of a weapon-free zone in schools. Also stipulates that if there were to be somebody that came onto campus with a weapon, that the principal or whoever was responsible would go into a lockdown situation immediately, and police would be called. So that is the highlights. I have a much longer version if you'd like it, but that's the 5-minute version.
And I think there were only 1 or 2, besides the options that we can choose, 1 or 2 things that we wrote in, but one was just reconfirming something that we talked about last year and that is not in the Neola template on conflict of interest. So the board conflict of interest policy applies to any citizen member who's on any of the board's committees. And that was the main thing that was added to the recommendation, to the Neola templates.
Yeah, just minor additions, really, not much at all.
All right, so
I think one thing I'd like to point out to be mindful of, and I don't see anything alarming yet, but I think that we always have to be mindful of financial restrictions that people may have. And so as we continue to try to be recruiting a diverse board socioeconomically, racially, everything else, I think that we have to be mindful of funding, access to training, meals, events like that, because I wouldn't want it to be that some members of the board could afford to do those things and others could not. So I would like it to be a barrier-free board.
Right, and we definitely talked about that and wanted to make sure that the main thing that was required is that we have a budget and that it be planned ahead of time, and then.
And I saw that in there, and I just wanted to be, as we are looking, to be verbal about that and
Right.
make sure that people know that we are trying to be mindful of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is the gift policy, where we're just benchmarking against the state limitations. So there are many times, like if somebody sends the administration a gift basket, at the holidays, for instance, you don't want to go through all the trouble of sending back a $15 gift from a vendor. So it's covered under the limit. It can't, be worth more than $56, but other than that, the cost would be more to resolve it than probably.
Am I supposed to be getting gift baskets? Just
where did Plant Moran go? Sure, they got out of here beforehand.
This is their gift.
Yes.
You don't get gift baskets, you overpay your vendors, I think.
Yeah, since we don't overpay vendors anymore, we haven't been getting so much, so. All right, so this is the first reading, so any other feedback or information should go to Blake and Tom, and I'll bring it back to the governance committee in the beginning of December, and back to the board a week later at our, was it December 14th meeting, I believe?
Mm-hmm.
Right. What? Did I say the wrong date? Okay. All right, so we will move on to the item 7.4, which is a request to approve the second semester school of choice recommendation.
Mr. Good.
There he is.
So we're requesting that for the second semester, we open up for school of choice both at UHS and TCEC. We don't anticipate a large influx of students, but we just want to be able to be open to both those schools just in case there are students who are interested in transferring second semester, that we're able to accomplish that. The one thing to note with second semester school of choice is the window is only a week long in the middle of January. It's not like in over the summer where we're open for months and months and months. So it is a relatively short window.
Okay.
And this is the same as we've done.
Same as
in all
we've
the
done,
previous
yeah,
years.
yeah, in previous years, correct.
All right. Any questions? Then I will entertain a motion to approve the recommendation of the superintendent. The school of choice window be approved as prepared by the director of communication. Moved by Ms. Kermuller and seconded by Ms. Latash. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, may we have a roll call, please?
Latash?
Yes.
Leeksnay? Yes. Toomey?
Yes.
Deacon-Kraus?
Yes.
Hermuller?
Yes.
President O'Donnell?
Yes. And with 6 yes votes, the motion passes and the recommendation is approved. Thank you. We'll move on to the informational items, and first here a curriculum report.
So we wanted to update the board a little bit on the work that's been going on regarding the restructuring. We know that our PTA presidents are here to let you know the work they've been doing. And we have a number of different committees from middle school transition to logistics, a number of different committees. So Ms. Rushell is going to present today on our the curriculum instruction, which has a majority of the work and which really is the most important piece of all of this, our students' achievement. Sure.
Hi everyone. So the first thing I'm going to show you is just an overview of the first day that we sat down with all of the elementary staff, which was October 26th. We had a PLC, a professional learning community meeting, one held at Coolidge, one held at JFK, and one held at Roosevelt. But we, Beth Grillo, Tom Mays, and myself facilitated it along with the principals at each building. So the transition meetings are intended to provide clarity on the elementary restructuring process that is related to instruction. gather valuable input for outcomes that matter to all of us, and then to provide dedicated time to work together towards a strong transition and a purposeful elementary community. October 26th was our first time we met. November 3rd, we had a half-day PD. We have 2 other short meetings with them, as well as another half-day PD. Blake and I are meeting with the principals next week and talking about taking up a little bit more time during your staff meetings as well. A short time, just so that we really need to have clarity that we're all having input into what will be taking place next year. The first time we met, we had a goal to understand the impact of what a purposeful community is, paint a picture for all of the staff members, what it will look like in 16-17, see what each committee was charged with and contribute to the work that is taking place, and then for everyone to be an active contributor. Watched a little video on the power of determination. You have that in your packet if you want to watch it. I seem to make people cry on my selection of videos, so if you would like to have anyone cry, watch some of the videos. Purposeful community. All of our administration team has been doing a lot of work with McCrell and with Marty Chafin in regards to that. So a purposeful community is one with collective efficacy and the capability to develop and use assets that accomplish goals that matter to everyone in the community through agreed upon processes. The better off we are thinking that we're all agreeing, we're all working together for the common good, the better off we're going to be when our doors open for 16-17 for our families and most importantly our children. When we think about collective efficacy, this is very interesting statistic. It's much better predictor of student success in schools than socioeconomic status of the students. I know you've heard Blake say this before, but I can walk into any building and tell you within a minute or two if there's true collective efficacy within that building. And that's what makes or breaks any good school, no matter what district you're in, no matter what county or state. It is that collective efficacy that we're all in this together. Collective efficacy that we can make a difference together. When the teachers and administrators perceive that their colleagues are competent with curriculum and teaching, the collective efficacy is much higher than in schools where this perception doesn't exist. And you can see it day in and day out very clearly. The belief is that through a united effort, we will make a difference in the schools where we work. So our committee, the Elementary Instruction Transition Committee, is comprised of parents, teachers, and administrators. We've also had a lot of consultation provided by Oakland Schools with Marty Chafin, also for World Language with Irma Torres, and with Larry Thomas, Wayne State professors and other educators in the field. We've really been doing our homework in regards to this whole restructuring process. Little baby steps, but we are getting there. Our purpose of our committee was to support school family members. When we say school family, students, teachers, staff, and parents in the process of moving into the 2 elementary campuses. Our committee was charged with developing a common vision, developing a daily, weekly schedule template, developing a 3-year professional development plan, learning and designing components of Cambridge primary within our current framework, developing project-based learning expectations and practices by grade level, developing focus studies, implementation, and expectations, deciding on world language components, structures, and expectations, developing common understanding of school cultural components, designing a standards-based report cards, updating our K-5 homework policy, understanding special education students' needs, and focusing on less fragmentation for them and more inclusion, streamlining our student achievement team process and have consistent interventions, and determining what technology instruction will look like, how we teach technology skills set along with the instructional side as a teacher. A little bit of work, just a little bit. Our school is Ferndale Elementary School next year. We have a lower campus, K2 at Roosevelt, and an upper campus 3-5 at JFK. We just wanted to make sure we covered all of the t-shirts, the back of them, with lots of language. Each school, upper and lower campus, has a collective vision. I believe everyone has seen that. I will hand that out to you in a moment afterwards. One of the big things we've been working on with staff is to have common definitions for Ferndale Elementary School. The more clarity and commonality we have, the better off we're going to be. We'll have more coherence as instructional staff members. Our families will have more coherence, and we'll have better collective efficacy. So we've been spending a lot of time on that. In your packet, you have the ABCs of Ferndale Elementary School. And so that will be one way for our instructional staff and a different way for our parents, but it will be the same language. One of the things that I wanted to share was at our last meeting, we did an activity where we asked the staff members to rank the most important terms in the eyes of our elementary staff. School culture was number one by far. Diversity, social emotional development, and school family all were right next behind it. So what that tells us is that we all really have the same perspective of what's most important when we think about what our children need. I heard Tim Schimmer the other day, and he said that cognitive function is on a platform only functions on a platform from emotions. So we know that we need to really look at our students' social and emotional development so that their academic success will happen. And that's very clear from the terms that we did with our staff. So we're still working on that. It's kind of like a spiraling. We think of curriculum as a spiral development, and that's what we're thinking of our restructuring process. So every time we get input on a change of the definition, we're changing it. So by the end, we've all had input onto exactly what it means for accommodations, best practices, balanced literacy, differentiated instruction, what is focused studies, positive behavior support, all sorts of definitions that I have provided for you tonight. The next thing that we did was to develop an elementary timeline and plan and a restructuring calendar. In your packet that I gave you, you'll see the restructuring calendar. It is focused on what we will do for our students, what we will do for our staff, and what we will do for our family and community. That will be going out in the newsletter that will go out to families and staff members this week. I just said all that. All right. At each time we have met with our staff, we have given them an exit ticket, and this is a personal can-do statement this was from October 26th through November 3rd, and we did another one on November 3rd until our next meeting. I can tell you that 99.9% of them are absolutely astounding in how excited our elementary instructional staff are about this process and how we're doing the process. Although it is difficult, they are all on board, and the personal can-do statements are pretty impressive. So now I'm going to go to the November 3rd meeting. Right, yeah. So at our November 3rd meeting, we had Marty Chafin from Oakland Schools. He has been working with Tom, Beth, and I, and the administrators all year long, and he helped plan this meeting. So one of the things that we did was we reviewed change theory so that everybody understands how this change is going to impact all of us in different ways. Here's one of the quotes that we used. It's not so much that we're afraid of change or so in love with the old ways, but it's that place in between that we fear. It's like being between trapezes. It's Linus when his blanket is in the dryer. There's nothing to hold on to. I could have a picture of Dawson as well, my son, because when his blanket needs to be cleaned, he's having a conniption. He's not quite sure what to hold on to. So that's one of the quotes that we've been going over and over. This is the work that our administration team has been working on since the beginning of summer, the Balanced Leadership Framework and School Leadership That Works. We have been meeting with them monthly on working through this. This is our first and second order change so that some people maybe at the middle school or high school that are not going to make very many changes. This is just first order. What's the big deal? We can handle this. Whereas teachers who are closing down Coolidge and students and parents who are closing down Coolidge and saying goodbye, it's a much bigger deal. You know, how do we say goodbye to our K-6 population at JFK and open up our arms to just 3-5? How do we say goodbye to K-3 at Roosevelt? All of those things make a big difference. So we need to learn how to recognize that change. If you get a chance, this is a medieval help desk little clip, and it talks about change. And this man is moving from a scroll that he reads to a book, and he calls to help desk because he doesn't know how to open the book. And then once he opens the book, he doesn't know how to turn the pages. So it's a change order that he's really struggling with. At this meeting, we focused on collective efficacy again. Again, we went over definitions and we broadened our definitions. And the more we go through them, the more clear they will be and more coherent. We moved from change theory into transitions at this meeting from the work of Dr. Bridges. There are 3 stages of transitions: the ending, losing, and letting go, the neutral zone, and then the new beginning. In the ending phase, the denial, shock, anger, frustration, stress, or ambulance, the actions that we would do. In the neutral zone, nothing seems to work. There's a production dip. There's both creativity and chaos could be possible. And then there's the new beginning. At our meeting, we had all of the participants take a 5x7 index card and draw a picture of what they might be losing or letting go. Then Miss Keefe came up and was like dynamic about the egg, the carrot, and the coffee, about how we can make those changes and be very impactful. And then all of the instructional staff drew a picture of what they were looking forward to at the new beginning. And we will be using those drawings in a manner that I'm not going to tell you about quite yet, because it'll be a surprise. No. So our staff went through all of that. Then the staff broke into grade level groups or circuit groups. So we had music, art, gym work together. We had special education work together. We had our social workers work together, our reading specialists. While our grade level teachers worked on the project-based learning, our reading specialists looked at how could we provide multi-tier structure of support at both buildings with our current staff and what we could do. I shared with them the new reading law that's being impacted and what we might be able to do. We feel we have a very solid lead on that once it goes past. Our special ed teachers work together under Sarah Struzik, who is interning as a director of special ed, and she led them through a process to make sure that their input was heard. But our teachers worked on what does project-based learning look like to them. And Michael Thomas, Michelle Harris, and Daniel Cover led this work. We watched a couple videos of what project-based learning looks like. Although it's in both schools, it's not in all classrooms. So this is also either a first order change or a second order change for our teachers. However, all of them are very excited. This is what good education looks like. So in your packet, you will see the beginning of what the project-based learning units, they're not really units, but some of the key areas that we're going to focus on at each grade level. So in kindergarten, they're going to do a nonfiction study and a social studies study. In first grade, they're going to focus on insects and align that with nonfiction work. In second grade, they're going to do 2 studies, one of the community and one of country. Third grade, they're working on a theme of Michigan natural resource conservation, but spreading that through the whole year. Fourth grade will be doing their theme is United States, My Country 'Tis of Thee. One of their projects is informational text. The other is persuasive writing. Fifth grade, their theme, It's a Small World, and they're going to be doing 3 different studies with that. So we're still working on that, but bringing everyone together, gathering their input. What are you most comfortable trying next year? And implementing with fidelity. And so that's how that will look for them. Any questions on that? Another thing that we did that day was look at outdoor education and camp experiences. Both buildings, although there's some similarities, do different things, and we wanted to bring the teachers together to talk about, well, this camp worked very well, this one didn't. How can we bring that together and then share that with our parents so that we're all on the same page? As Mindy and Helen said, they're already starting to schedule things, but we wanted to make sure that our teachers had input into that. And with the changes in our curriculum and some of our practices, we wanted to make sure that that merges. And so that's why we had that conversation with our staff as well. All right. The next thing is our elementary report card. Karen, do you want to talk about this? Karen's like a cheerleader for us with our new report card.
The new report card is really nice.
So
I've already been sharing it with other education professors and researchers and teachers from different districts because I'm on that social justice project along with some of our own team people, so talking with them.
So the goal of our elementary report card is, one, to make it more friendly, not just for our families, but to make it more friendly for our teachers as well and for our students, and to make sure that it has an impact on after we send it home and after we share it with our children and our parents, so that we can say, this is where I'm at, this is where I need to be, and this is where what I need to do to get there. And leave all the other stuff behind, to make it very family friendly and have a mindset approach to it. So you can see we are working with Cindy Burns, our status specialist, so that this will all be in the MyStar system and it'll be easy for our teachers to do. So the first thing are local assessments. We use the developmental reading assessment, and so it'll have the child's score, the grade level translation, and then the target score. So let's say right now my child's in first grade and he's reading at a DRA score of 8. That translation is about beginning, middle of first grade. By the end of the year, he should be at a level 16. That will help me understand as a parent what I need to do. Same thing with NWEA. It'll give the child's current reading NWEA score, the target, and the national norm score for reading, English, and math. Below that will be content area, and this is the upper school report card, so that'll look different. The skills for learners will be pre-populated with specifics on what we expect the students to do in school. In the K2 report card, it will be what developmental milestones your child needs to have to succeed in school. So very different approach.
So what I like about it is, a lot of people use standards-based grading and these terms very differently. And I think what had been happening in our district was you had a laundry list of all these standards that came from our Michigan Glicks and Huskies, and it was indecipherable, and it took the teachers too long to fill out. So what this does is it's going to boil it down to what are sort of your power standards, your key skills, so that I as a parent can look and see, oh, this is how my student rates. And so you can see clearly, okay, the student is a little bit below in this, a little above in that, and the best column hints for home. I mean, how many of us parents have been sitting there and saying, okay, well, so my kid's a little bit behind, I don't know what to do about it. Or my kid is reading 3 grade levels ahead, how do I continue to keep them engaged and motivated? And so it's just such an excellent form of communication in order to really fill out that triangle between parents, teachers, and students.
So that's that page. But like Karen said, so the power standards, we have power standards K-12 in our schools, and that will be a drop-down menu. It'll be highlighted on the power standards that your child worked on this session or this quarter. It'll tell you if your child's or the child is below, at, or above grade level. It will tell you, and then it'll tell you the level at the last quarter. All year long, it will update where your child's level is. And then, like she said, on the very right-hand side, hints for home, and we'll have specific things that you can do at home if you choose to support your child. And that is if your child's below grade level, at grade level, or above grade level. So it'll be very personalized for your child. They look the same. This is the upper school report card, and then there's the lower school. There's also Spanish, art, music, and gym that are on all report cards.
The educators wanted to find a way to really celebrate if your child was 2 grade levels behind and show that there is growth and movement going up. Because on the former report card, it would just keep saying below, 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 below. And so this way you'll almost be able to see the bar moving up and the progress being a little more clear.
Right, so some of the frustrations on the teacher and administrator side of our prior report cards was we had children who were making leaps and bounds of success, but they weren't at grade level. So the report card was hard to show that information. So parents were very confused when a report card showed that my child is working so diligently hard, yet he's not passing. So this one really clears it out for you that this is where your child's at. This is what the instruction I'm doing in the school is, and this is what you can do at home.
Well, if everybody else in the class is reading Harry Potter and your kid's reading Clifford and getting really good marks on Clifford, you think, well, but my kid's getting really good marks every night. What's the problem? And so this kind of clearly communicates what those marks mean.
So again, we're still working on this, but this is some of the work that we've been doing at the Achievement Committee meetings. And again, getting input, going back and putting in place, getting input, going back and putting it in place. So, any questions in regards to that?
I just have a comment. I've been lucky enough to be at several of these meetings, and just so that everybody at home knows, it is a really dynamic and interactive group of teachers and all sorts of people that work within the school coming together to kind of like hammer out what the next year is going to look like. And there's a really good conversation taking place, and there's a lot of parents that come and show up and community members. And I've been surprised at how willing everyone is to be open to these changes, because like those things, it is really scary, and a lot of us, like it's very tender for some people to think about moving forward to like maybe what your older child had experienced and now your younger one, and everyone's doing a really good job of focusing on the hopeful parts of like, well, as we move forward in the future, okay, so Johnny isn't going to have what Jimmy had, but Johnny's going to have this, and this looks really rad. And I'm just really proud of the whole community, and the teachers are working their butts off. You can see at the table how hard they are to try to come to some sort of, they're always talking about the students. Mm-hmm. They want to make sure that they're ready for the kids, so that way the move is good for the kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say it's true collaborative experience. I mean, I hope that once we move into the transition and we start to see it, that we hear that this was a collaborative experience. It wasn't any type of top-down approach. That's my goal walking away. The last few things I want to talk to you about, We are still working on the world language information, but I know you're proud of my words. We have looked into the standards, the United States calls it standards for foreign language learning, but it's for world language learning. And it's Blake, if you can scoot it down just a little bit, there's 5 areas. Communication is the heart of the second language study. Then the focus on cultures, understanding the culture and the language. Then the connections, able to have additional bodies of knowledge that may be unavailable to the monolingual English speaker. Then the comparisons and contrasts with that language being studied as to what we do, and then community. So you can see that it's not just about learning oral language, but it's much broader sense of what we want to do with our students. Then on the bottom there, you can see that what we want them to do is to show competence in more than one language and culture, enable students to communicate, look beyond borders, have a deeper understanding of their language and culture, act with greater awareness, gain access and knowledge, and participate more globally. We want all of our students to be successful language and cultural learners, and that they must have access to language and cultural study, benefit from the development and maintenance of proficiency in more than one language, and language and culture education is part of the core curriculum and is tied to program models that incorporate effective strategies, assessment procedures, and technologies, reflect evolving standards of the national, state, and local levels, and develops and enhances basic communication skills. We've done a lot of research on how we will implement world language next year. We'll have more specifics once we introduce that and share that with the Achievement Committee in December. Lots of studies on non-at-risk students, how much more successful they can be, and just as important is introducing a second language to our at-risk students, what a difference it can do to their vocabulary and self-esteem, which that was new research to me. I would have thought it would be more difficult for students to learn 2 languages, and it's very interesting, the research. I will be working with our high school, University High School and Ferndale High School and middle school world language teachers on Friday all day. They have offered to go into the Oakland schools curriculum and blend that with Ferndale curriculum and make not only the curriculum but the units of instruction that go with it. So kudos to them for taking the time to do that. We have met with them previously, but Friday we'll be doing that all day with our hope that we will be presenting all of the curriculum and units of instruction of our Spanish to the Achievement Committee in December to bring it to you either December or January.
Great. And you've been working with the Oakland Schools consultant and the group in terms of developmentally, when and how we need to do this.
How can we do that it's developmentally good for all of our students, that we can maintain fidelity with the program, and that our children, by the time they leave 5th grade, are ready for different levels of instruction.
And we're also having conversation about how to use our time most meaningfully. So some districts will play this sort of game where they put, 20 minutes a week at each grade level, and it does nothing to build any of those 5 C's that we saw up there. So how do we structure that time most effectively, and is it better to concentrate that in the later years?
And Beth Grillo and I have spent a lot of time learning about world language and having those deep conversations with our teachers and the Oakland Schools consultant, and have reached out to Birmingham, Berkeley, and I want to say Lake Orion. So we've been having a lot of conversations on how this will really look like. This is a big impact in elementary next year. And how do we do that so that they're not just getting hit or miss education, but really deep diving into learning about different cultures.
We're not creating a brochure, we're creating a program. We're not creating just a brochure, we're creating a meaningful program.
Oh yeah, no. So, any questions on world language?
Well, this is sort of a question on that's broader, includes the work on world language, but certainly this represents a tremendous amount of great work that's really going to advance the district. And I was just wondering if you could you talked a little bit about getting input and collaboration from everyone, and this is really for you and board members or anyone who's participated in any of these meetings. But can you talk a little bit about the engagement level and how you feel people are engaged on either the parent end or the teachers, from especially those who maybe weren't so excited about this change? And I'm particularly interested really in both teachers and parents, because I know there were some teachers that were less enthusiastic, as well as some parents, and not just one set of parents, but there were really parents at all the schools that were unsure about this.
I think when you are in the midst of a change and you're not quite sure what that outcome will be, that creates that concern. That goes back to that Linus quote that I shared with you. You don't know what's in between. But the more information we're sharing with teachers and staff, the more clarity that we're having and the less stress that there will be. It's a spiral approach of what we're doing, so our goal is that they're like, oh my goodness, are we going to look at that definition again? I know these definitions by heart. That's what I want to hear. I know this draft schedule by heart. We get this. I can do this. By the end of the year, our goal is to have them have their new Cambridge science curriculum in hand, their new math curriculum in hand, and a deep understanding of what project-based learning looks like next year, so they can walk away with that for the summer to do some of their own information gathering, and that's what they've asked for, and that's certainly what we're going to do. On parents, I have a lot of parents on our achievement committee. We have an incredible committee. I got the golden ticket on the committee, but the more information we share, they see that we gather their input, we go back and work on it right away, we meet every other week with that committee. That's how committed that community group and teachers are. I shared on November 3rd, we still have more work to do. I had 7 new teachers show up. So that's 21 new emails every week saying, what about this, Dina? What about this, Dina? We print them and we talk about it and we come back to the table. I mean, it's truly a spiral approach. So there's still people out there that are questioning and concerns, and that's okay. I think that's fine. The more information that we send out, the better they'll be. Which leads me to, this is just a K2 sample of our daily schedule. How do we fit everything in? And so how do we have our class meeting time, our block of English, our co-curricular activities, our math workshop, our science and social studies block. Then we have a new focus enrichment in the classroom and grade level. That might be free choice at the kindergarten level, an author study, our Motor Moms and Dad program about physical development. It might be purposeful play. But that is student-centered and learning time that will help build into the 3-5 classroom enrichment time, the 3-5 focus studies, all of that. So that's what it looks like at the lower level, and then the upper level is very similar, but that block of time that's called enrichment in the classroom, that's truly for somebody to get super support in one area. It might be by grade level. So let's say 3rd grade, we notice that we have a lot of students who are really shining and reading above grade level. One teacher might take that group of students and do a book study, where other grade level teachers might say, well, these students really need, these bubble kids are right on the edge. They just need a little more support, and I'll work with them. And so on. So we're really looking at, from kindergarten through 5th grade, how we can build in that individual time. At the end of it, that all of our kids will have the end of the day reflection. Our brain is very reflective thinking, so we need to say to them, let's think about what you did today. What was your favorite part? What could you do better? What do you need to work on? All of those things, so that they build that into their themselves, so they're more self-directed learning Again, some of our third graders tonight showed you those data folders and their goal building. That is part of that Hattie's research, that these kids need to know. Our brain is goal oriented. This is where I'm at. This is where I need to be. Kids as young as 3 years old get that. And the earlier we do that with our kids, by the time they get to middle school and high school, they will understand what it means to be a successful student in Ferndale. The last thing I wanted to talk about was our Cambridge update. At the middle school level, we have been having a lot of success with Cambridge. Our kids love being part of the Cambridge program. I had a little girl, she's not little, middle school student share with me, the reason I come to school every day, Miss Dina, is because of my Cambridge classes. So very, very interesting to see that. And this was a girl that was on the question, could she succeed in that classroom? And she is succeeding with high success. So very good there. We had a great parent meeting with Dr. Stobie. How many of you were able to attend? I know I saw Jen there. Outstanding. We spent the day with him. Ferndale is, I should say Beth Grillo and Ferndale are above the bar when it comes to Cambridge. They are so impressed with the amount of work that we have put into the program, and we're very excited about that. Right now, Beth, Tom, and I are looking at Cambridge Science and how that aligns with our new Michigan standards and what that looks like for next year for our elementary classes. And then we're working on a progression on how we can build more Cambridge instruction into our K-8 population over the next 3 years. We can't do it all at once. It has to be a progress. And the last thing that I want to share with you is a draft of our newsletter for 2 more days. And then this will be published for everybody to have. I'm looking at my dear friend Blake.
It'll be done.
Okay.
Does he have some writing to do?
Yes.
I do.
So in this newsletter, this is the first of 4 newsletters that we'll be sending out to our parents and our staff in our community. On the front page is a letter from Blake, just sharing the process of our elementary restructuring. Then it goes over our lower and upper campus vision. It has the restructuring calendar, like I shared with you, what we're doing for our students, what we're doing for our staff, and what we're doing for our parents and community. It gives a little bit about what our current elementary schools are doing so far, so that you can tell that we're going to be blending that. In this edition, we're talking about at Roosevelt, their whole child approach and their multi-tier approach to supporting kids. At Coolidge, this talks about what they're doing for guided reading, and at Kennedy, what they're doing with the data folders. On the back page, it talks a little bit about our Ferndale definition of project-based learning, the video that you could watch about what it looks like in practice, some of our best practices in instruction, and then what's the work ahead. So I'm going to pass this around. You will be getting a newsletter by Friday.
Yes, they will.
Any questions for me?
This was very comprehensive. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it, and I'm grateful that you were willing to stay a little bit later. And this is the most important thing that we have to do is collectively is get this right. And I appreciate all the work that you're doing, not just tonight, but every day and many, many nights.
And I want to say between Dina and Beth and Tom and Lauren, just the amount of work and the quality of work has been phenomenal. When our schools open next year, it is really going to be due to a lot of the work that Dina's department has done, because curriculum instruction are the heart of what we do. It is why we're here. So, and just another aside on the Cambridge, when we went out with the Cambridge folks, they're looking at possibly having some of our teachers become trainers for Cambridge because they're so impressed with what our teachers are doing, as well as Beth and Tom and the work that they're doing. I was able to present at a Cambridge event in Troy to other schools from Ohio and Michigan. Dina and Beth were there to also talk. So it's been a great relationship so far, and our teachers are they're knocking out of the park. We have great staff.
Outstanding. It's great to hear. So how did you get such a clear selfie of Blake on the front of this newsletter?
Thank you and good night.
All right, HR report.
Good evening again. I really just have a brief report tonight. Wanted to share some, I guess you would call them late-breaking personnel announcements that are all good news, really. We're hiring some growth positions at the TCEC program. That is a new teacher, as well as a data analyst position. Both of those, due to the phenomenal numbers that have come in through our account. And so we're very happy to have that, and we should be hiring those people very soon. Also, in terms of growth, we have had some pretty significant growth in our special education population and with some at the elementary levels. And so through some discussion with the special ed department, we made a decision late in the week, last week, that we were going to bring in some additional support positions to support those students. So that is happening. Liz Lasiski was transferred to the enrollment office, where she's been, I think this is her second week there. And just this morning, Marcy Dupuis accepted the Kennedy secretary position, where she'll be starting on Wednesday of this week. So I think that everybody who knows Marcy is confident in the job that she'll do there. She has some pretty big shoes to fill with Liz leaving, but I think she's going to do a great job. So, other just brief things I wanted to mention. Marie talked about the professional development that we're doing with secretaries. I think that if I could have them every week for 45 minutes, I could fill up that time, but I'm settling for 1 day a month, and we have some exciting plans for the rest of the year that we're going to do with them. Our open enrollment period is up at the end of this week. So we're kind of watching, we have some staff members who needed a little bit more time, and we extended some cash payment in lieu of benefits offers to the staff that we're waiting to hear back on, and so the extension is just due to that. So that'll be done on Friday. Teacher evaluations are well underway. As you know, last year we kind of threw everything up in the air. This year we picked up the one thing we didn't touch last year, which was the student growth portion of the evaluation. So that's been a big change for staff, but we're working through it. We've done some good training, and the feedback's been pretty positive so far. And we worked really closely this year with curriculum and instruction as well, as we made some of those changes. And that's all I have this evening. I can answer any questions anybody has.
All right, Totsini. Thanks, Tom. All right, we didn't have any pulled consent agenda items, so we will move to legal points of pride. And who wants to begin?
I'll start.
Okay.
Third time in a row for the same group. This time the voters voted our absolutely necessary tax renewal, 80 to 20. So we're very thankful to that, and people clearly got the message that the schools are doing well and that this is essential for the schools. This may not be the last time we come to the voters, so we're still investigating that possibility, but I hope and trust that when we do, they will show us the same consideration and let us try and recoup some of the losses we've had at the state level. So in addition to the voters too, I want to thank all of those people, most of them in this room, who worked really hard getting voters out, getting things to doors, because it worked well. So thanks.
I came in this evening wanting to share my point of pride and then realized how many people were already sharing that point of pride, which was that my son, little 8-year-old third grader, led his own conferences and how much work goes into that because there's a lot of preparation and on both the teacher side and the student side and really getting them familiar with what their personal goals are. And I'll tell you, my kid is constantly telling me his own goals and he's so motivated because of it. And so thanks to all the work behind the scenes to have made that possible and meaningful.
There's a group of 10 staff members that are doing some diversity training with Dr. Jay Marks. We've got our third session tomorrow. It's an opportunity I get to be with staff members outside of my superintendent role, which is great. And it just continues to remind me of the dedication of the staff to all kids and to learn. So we have teachers of all different age levels. And that the continuous want to learn about kids and how to reach the kids and how to work together as a community. And to me, that's what's special about Ferndale is that we're a community and we want to be a community and we want to grow as a community. So that was just something that's on my radar screen that's a point of pride.
All right. And my point of pride is Mary Beth Trains, who is a volunteer in the schools and just does a tremendous amount for the orchestra program, for the band program. There are so many great volunteers that are associated with our music program, but I don't know of anyone that gives more of her time than Mary Beth. And yeah, her whole heart. And yeah, when the kids leave Ferndale, she's still in touch with them. Still, they still come to her with requests for help and support, and she just does so much. Whether it's working, organizing volunteers and fundraising, and her whole family really is involved in supporting the music program. So, thanks to Mary Beth.
I've been listening to Blake and Jim, so I didn't have time to create another point of pride because Karen said exactly what I was going to say today. That's okay. I had the ability and the privilege of having 2 conferences today with 3 teachers, and the amount of work that went into creating this concept of student-led conferences and the amount of time that clearly the parents took, that the teachers took with the kids to write up their goals and to work on their sheets and not only what they're proud of, but what they want to work on and how they can work on that. And then their ability, the kids' ability to reflect that and explain that today was so amazing to see. My kids, I always ask, how was school? Fine. What'd you do today? Not much. What'd you do on the, what'd you do? Everything, recess is always a favorite, but they really drilled it down today, and I've heard that they love science, and they love reading, and they love morning meeting. They get, Quinn just got all excited talking about morning meetings, so to see that level of excitement and the amount of time that the teachers took with the kids, it warmed my heart today. So,
I'm going to do my point of pride is super personal. I've been really involved with the marching band this year, and I'm a cabin mom, and I'm incredibly proud of all of the hard work that the kids put in. This is, it's like no joke. Like these kids are incredibly serious and motivated, and we're so single-minded and so purposeful in improving just to improve. I'm not even sure if they were even that focused on winning states. I don't know, it was just like an amazing thing to be part of, and it reminds me all the time, like the kids that we have the opportunity and that we're all responsible for here, they're amazing. And it's, it's not obviously not just the marching band kids, it's all the kids, but I just got a chance to spend a lot of time with marching band kids in the last little while, and I'm really impressed with the student leadership on the marching band team. It's like a lot of things in Ferndale because, in this financial era, you do things where you have to empower your kids to be in leadership positions because you don't have the money to pay for a grown-up to do that, perhaps, right? The kids, they're amazing. They're organized, they're professional, they're supportive, they're super, super conscientious of the young kids that are part of the marching band. Like, they're very conscious of making sure that they're being age appropriate when they're talking to, like, fresh kids, which always like really astounds me. Like if someone will, you know, let her rip with some language, someone else will be like, and it's very sweet. So Zach and Sydney, who are the
Drum majors.
drum majors, thanks. I'm just, yeah, it's great. And I mean, obviously, all of this happens underneath the amazing steady hands of Mr. Jameson and Mr. Moy, who will on every year, and we're incredibly lucky to have them. So I know a lot of people are celebrating them, but I just wanted to do it again.
Well, I would like to share my point of pride. My point of pride is actually my board. My board colleagues. No, I'm not. I don't know if you know, but I'll be transitioning to the city council in January. And it looks as if I may not be able to attend the last board meeting because of a council conflict, so I want to say my thank yous to my board tonight. It's been a pleasure working with all of you. I've learned a lot from all of you. I'm not that often. All right. And I just want you to know that I'm looking forward to continuing our relationship. I may be at another table, but know that I'm always in your corner. I'm going to be backing you, probably out from the audience from now on. And I'm looking forward to a strong collaborative relationship with all of you. So thank you. It's been a great 3 years.
Thank you, Raylan.
Yeah, thank you, Raylan. All right, well, our next regular board meeting will be Monday, December 14th, 2015. We do have, at least I have it in my notes, we have a special board meeting that will be a retreat type thing on a Saturday in December. Did we?
I don't.
We might not have sent out notice of that, so.
No, I don't think we've sent that out yet, so we'll.
Surprise!
Yeah.
December 25th, I think?
Yeah.
Yes.
24th.
Okay.
The 12th.
Hey, my people are fine.
Well, maybe it won't happen. Maybe it'll be in January.
Oh, we will get information out to everybody.
But I just wanted to note that so everyone knew out there. We may be having a special meeting just for retreat planning purposes. And I think that is it.
Yep.
Without hearing no objection, we are adjourned at 9:38. You're free.
There we go.